I'm not sure if Cheryl was truly perplexed by the major announcement, but many basketball fans were left perplexed as to why the NBA abruptly called off the three-point contest between Stephen Curry and Sabrina Ionescu at the All-Star Games. By all accounts, the contest from last year was a success, and they currently intend to repeat it. Sabrina got within 3 points of Steph, which generated headlines across the sports world and provided a broader audience with a glimpse of the skill in the WNBA because of the visibility the WNBA may have lost by not being showcased on the NBA stage. Some see this as a big fat L for the league and women's basketball. I mean, just look what the exposure of 3 dunk contest victories has done for MC McClung's NBA career. Okay, nothing against Mac, the guy saved the dunk contest, but you can probably tell where I'm going with this. Those who think not taking part in the NBA skills competition hurts the WNBA are wrong, which is a good thing because business as usual wasn't all that hot until Caitlin came around from a year's 27-1 BC, and by BC I mean before Caitlin, because let's be honest, that's how historians will measure time when it comes to the WNBA players would have begged for a shot at. The NBA All-Star Game, the ratings were superior, the audience was huge, it was a prime opportunity to elevate their brand, but it was also a sideshow, a gimmick, and no matter how you slice it, it kind of felt like charity in the sense that the NBA didn't really need the WNBA's involvement, and that's why Caitlin's snub and the NBA's subsequent cancellation makes such a profound statement. The WNBA, its players, and the haters who try to tear down Caitlin at every turn better wake up after what just took place. This is just one of many chess moves Caitlin's made that have paid off, and now the stage is set for her to silence the haters for good. Let's break it down. So, Caitlin turned down the All-Star Games three-point challenge for the second straight year. Last year, her decision was all about rest. She had come off a deep run with the Hawkeyes, then jumped right into the WNBA. And while this season's decision was also tactical, it had nothing to do with rest. It was the ultimate flex of her brand. Caitlin made it very clear that her first three-point shootout would take place at the WNBA All-Star Game in Indianapolis this summer once more. Prior to Caitlin's arrival, the NBA rejected the NBA All-Star Game in favor of the WNBA's version, which made no sense and still doesn't make sense for any player other than Caitlin. We recently received evidence that the NBA responded by canceling the entire event, claiming they couldn't find a way to win last year's event. But come on, that's code for no Caitlin, no point. This is why it's important. Remember how I said WNBA players needed the NBA stage? Well, in this case, the NBA needed a WNBA player. Caitlinclark. Even if you disagree with that position, you can't ignore Caitlin's charisma. She is currently the most influential person in basketball. Sports professionals ranked her as the 4th most marketable athlete in the world, ahead of Messi and Ronaldo. She has a unique capacity to attract casual fans who normally wouldn't watch a women's NBA game if they were paid, and everyone knows it. She also has far more star power and intrigue than any other player in the women's game. Gatorade, State Farm, by Nike, Buick, Bose, these are only a few of the companies Caitlin has partnered with. She has probably had offers from hundreds of well-known companies that you are familiar with. At this point, she is saying no far more often than yes, which leads us back to the impact of her NBA snub. Knowing that she is the major attraction, Caitlin chose to concentrate all of the emphasis on the WNBA rather than gaining individual fame on the NBA stage. Her rejection of the NBA was a huge yes for the WNBA. Every WNBA player ought to send Caitlin flowers, or, at the very least, a thank you text for prioritizing the WNBA. But here's the thing, this isn't even the first time she's done this. Clark is aware of her immense influence and is using it like a samurai to attract more attention to the league. Every choice Clark makes appears to be laser-focused on advancing the women's game through its largest platform. For instance, everyone believed she would seize the opportunity to play an unmatched game, including the organizers and most likely TNT, who committed to a deal because they probably assumed Caitlin would be involved. Clark has been steadfast in her dedication to the WNBA. The league pays its players more than the WNBA, and Caitlin was expected to use her influence to help the league grow. However, unlike turning down the NBA, the Women's League Unrivaled promoted better pay for its players, and let's not kid ourselves, while Unrivaled won't admit it, her absence could mean the league's demise in a few years. But again, her justification was consistent. She is laser-focused on the WNBA because she knows that's the big stage. there is no prestige in winning unrivaled, and that's not what people will remember. The Olympics are the only basketball event outside of the WNBA that she will play in because it carries prestige and legacy. It's representing her country in front of the world, not playing for a paycheck in front of 850 fans. Could you envision Caitlin missing 20 games of the upcoming WNBA season due to an injury sustained while playing 3-on-3 versus Angel Reese? The side shows and antics are distractions and possible liabilities that could undermine her goals. While some players in the league actively seek attention outside of basketball by using their attitude and personality to land sponsorship deals, Caitlin knows that her dominance on the court is the foundation of her meteoric rise, so the WNBA should have paid her $5 million to not play for that reason alone. I won't mention names. What Clark does as soon as she sets foot on hardwood is what makes her so alluring. The hype followed her to the W, where her draft alone drew 3.4 million viewers. Her aura began to take shape in college, where she not only broke records but also shattered them, becoming the all-time points leader in college basketball history, not just for women's basketball, but also for men's. She accomplished this with style, putting on dominant playoff performances and leading her team to 2 final appearances. Let's take a moment to process the fact that Clark not only met the sky-high expectations, but also blew them away in her rookie season. She averaged an incredible 19.2 points and 8.4 assists per game, set the single-season assists record, became the first rookie in WNBA history to record a triple-double, and won Rookie of the Year. Oh, and did I mention that she led her team to the playoffs and finished 4th in MVP voting in her first year? I'll go into how they're going to look awful in a minute, but her on-court accomplishments captivated a whole new audience. Want proof? Let's look at the numbers. Nearly every game that drew over 1 million viewers included Caitlin Clark's first-round playoff games, with Indiana Fever games accounting for an astounding 45% of the league's broadcast value. Attract more attention than the WNBA Finals, but this is where things start to become interesting. We all love the Lexi Halls and Tammy Bentley of the world, but they aren't the ones the fans came to see. Of course, as I mentioned, there will always be critics. If Caitlin stinks up the place, the talking heads have every right to call it out. However, some people argue that Clark's attraction and attention are based on race, arguing that it comes at the expense of other players who are equally talented, but let's face it, the numbers don't lie. In addition to receiving attention, Clark is earning it through her play on the court. Speaking of being difficult to get, let's discuss the power of saying no. This isn't something we frequently celebrate, but in Caitlin Clark's case, it's turning into a game changer because each time she says no, her brand value rises. Fans are going crazy over videos of Caitlin just working out or watching football games. You have to wait for the first WNBA game because the build-up ratings will be off the charts, and when the NBA simply cancels their events because you're not playing in them, that's power. This is the first time since 2023 that fans have gone this long without seeing Caitlin play basketball. In fact, did you ever think a WNBA player would have that kind of leverage? At the beginning of this video, I said that the haters would need to wake up because they aren't prepared for what's coming up this offseason. Caitlin proved she could draw more than just fans. By almost all accounts, she can draw players. Even Clark's detractors, who tried to discredit her by saying her attention was solely due to her race, are now forced to acknowledge her impact. Cheryl Swoops, of all people, said she respected Caitlin's decision because it put the women's game first. Let's face it though, when you're setting records, dragging your mediocre team to the playoffs, it's pretty hard to argue that you're not earning every bit of attention you get. The Fever won free agency and added 19-point scorer Kelsey Mitchell and young all-star Aaliyah. They also added 3-time champion and former Defensive Player of the Year Natasha Howard, 2-time champion, and 6-time all-star Dananna Boner, Sophie Cunningham, a sharpshooter, and fierce rival Sydney Carlson, a recent back-to-back champion who left Asia Wilson and the Aces to play with Caitlin. Perhaps for the first time in history, Boston and Caitlin have a powerhouse supporting they want to play with Caitlin because they cast their scorers, their detractors, and their winners, and doing so allows them the opportunity to not only win a championship but also to be a part of something bigger. You know, we're still talking about Scottie Pippen. Kerr, Steve Dennis Rodman, and Tony Kaye coached. The reason why people remember Bill Winnington is because they were a part of a dynasty headed by a legendary player who changed the game forever. Their supporting roles didn't diminish them. Rather, they solidified their reputations as dominant figures. In that sense, Caitlin Clark is the Michael Jordan of the WNBA, and the Bulls are the league's dominant team. While the commissioner and other media outlets salivate over rivalries like Caitlin versus Angel or Caitlin versus Asia, they should just support Caitlin's pursuit of a championship. If other players naturally develop rivalries, the impact of Caitlin's successful championship run cannot be overstated. Imagine what would happen if Caitlin made it to the WNBA Finals. We're talking about unprecedented viewership, not just the 1 to 2 million viewers per game achieved by the Liberty and Lynx, and with the finals being extended from 5 to 7 games this year, there would be even more exposure for the league. If Caitlin draws 10 million viewers and wins MVP, there won't be anywhere to hide for the haters who claim her ascent is driven by race, so they might as well tone down the rhetoric now that it's bad for the game. In any case, her success and visibility are inspiring a whole new generation of female athletes, proving that the WNBA can stand on its own without needing validation from a men's league. Her sponsorships and fame are a result of her onk. She is aware that everyone should be able to admire court accomplishment, and by declining the NBA and other chances, she stays laser-focused on what will have the largest influence on the women's game, as well as her brand and legacy. Clark's influence is already having a ripple effect. While leagues like Unrivaled were created to increase player salaries and the NBA's three-point challenge was meant to showcase women's talent, Clark is demonstrating that greatness in the WNBA is enough because of Caitlin and her self-control to say no. The WNBA All-Star Game in Indianapolis this summer will be must-see TV, and Clark knows it. She's not just taking part in an event. She's shining the spotlight on her peers because, as they say, a rising tide lifts all boats. If the outcome of Caitlin's recent power move with the NBA proved anything, it's that she's only just started to elevate the women's game. If you're still here, please leave a basketball in the comments section, and see you later.